Hello and welcome to another of our Peak District adventures. Today we're at Stanage Edge to bag the three Ethels here, White Path Moss, High Neb and Stanage Pole. White Path Moss, just bagged, is now behind us. I did a short for that one, so feel free to check it out on my channel. Ahead of us now, the long path across Stanage Edge to High Neb. I've already uploaded a separate video on Stanage Pole, but I'll point it out along the way. It's a fair hike to High Neb, but we'll be rewarded with some fantastic sights along the way. But as we walk, I'll tell you some ancient stories about these legendary rocks. Local lore says this place was the threshold of the White Path, a point where travellers left the world of farms and lanes and entered the realms of the Moor spirits. Shepherds once said that this moss was watched over by the Pale Guide, a figure glimpsed eerily through the mists only by those lost souls in peril who were then led back to safety, or perhaps deeper into the moor, depending on the Pale Guide's mood. Although the wind raged, we neither saw nor needed his help today. Even so, up here the wind felt like a messenger, sharp, insistent, carrying the sense that we were stepping onto older ground. The gritstone blocks behind us had lain scattered like broken altar stones, somehow strewn by ancient forces that had long flowed over this land. Passing each rock we get the sense that they have their own individual personalities. This one like a guardian peering through the stones, anticipating approaching souls. This one a rugged pillar pointing towards the sky as if defying the storms. And here, at Robin Hood's cave, hidden away in cracks and crevices below the ridgeway, a balcony, secretly watching over the valley below. Some lean like old sentries, some crouch low as if listening, and some stand tall, carved by wind and frost into towers and battlements. Long before people walked these moors, stories say these high places were ruled by giants, not the lumbering brutes of children's tales, but beings made of wind, thunder and the very gritstone that we now walk upon. They were called the Stone Choir, and their voices echoed across the moors like a chorus on the wind. They were guardians, not conquerors. They shaped the ridges, carved the edges, and kept the storms in balance. Where they walked, the land rose. Where they rested, the gritstone grew. The world changed, the age of giants faded, and the Stone Choir faced a choice to leave the high places forever or to remain in different form. They loved the moors too deeply to abandon them, the way the wind combed the heather, the way storms rolled in from the west like grey armies, the way the land opened wide and wild beneath the sky. So they made a vow to endure. They let their bodies harden in resolute serenity. Their limbs became pillars, their backs ramparts, and their faces turned towards the horizon and frozen place. They are still here today, waiting, watching, standing guard through the centuries of wind and ice, holding the boundary between the world of storms and people. And so they endure, silent in daylight. But on days when the wind roars across the edge, people say they can still hear their voices, deep, rumbling, echoing through every crack. Though on days like today, people say that you can still hear their voices calling to each other, singing in harmony, telling the ancient stories, or warnings to beware. But always in their ancient language of stone and storm. They remain here though, standing guard over the moor, catching the storms and watching over those travellers who pass this path. And those who do so become a part of their story for a moment. They stayed because the moors needed them, and perhaps in some quiet way they still need us too, to hear the wind and listen to their stories. Here the ridge begins to feel less natural, more like a long ancient wall, a frontier between the world below and something wilder above. As the path tightens, the drop from these ramparts grows steeper, the blocks themselves rising higher. This stretch has been known as the Procession Way, a route walked by the Neb Wardens, spirits of the stone who patrolled a boundary between ancient realms. Though the giants were born in the first storms of the First Age, the Neb Wardens were not giants, nor were they human. They were something in between. Whilst the Stone Choir were creators, the Neb Wardens are keepers. Spirits of these high places, shaped from the breath of the moor, the shifting mists and restless winds that sweep across the Citadel of High Neb. They emerged as the Second Age, stepping in as guardians of this boundary between realms of the living and ancient stone. They patrol this ridge, walking the procession way, ensuring the balance the giants once held is not lost. Did they ever meet? Well, not in the traditional way, more in the way that you and I have met today, touched by their stories. And it is said that the Neb Wardens still hear those stories and understand the deep meaning that the wind delivers. Some legends say that the Wardens were born from the last breath of the giants. Others say that they were summoned by their silence. Either way, this is why they share this understanding, and the Wardens walk because the giants stayed. But here, today, following the edge north, we could see the path clearly, stretching ahead, beneath the weathered ramparts of the edge and the boggy grassland of the moor. Threading its way between the grass and gritstone, the rocks gather themselves into shapes that feel more purposeful. This ridge has that quality, a sense that you are not alone, that the land itself is aware of your passing, where your footsteps become part of the rhythm of the place, the wind its soundtrack, and the edge the continued ancient story unfolding beneath your feet. But walking here, it is easy to imagine the Wardens by your side, silent, tall, their forms half seen in the corner of your eye. Like shadows they come and go, mindful of the many that they are here to watch over, and whose company they keep when the winds change. But here begins the ascent toward the Citadel. The rocks begin to tower before you again, the gritstone forming great leaning walls, overhanging and perhaps a little broken now, but this is where the Citadel began. High Neb has always been the high keep of Stanage, the stronghold of the ridge. In myth, this was the seat of the Moor King, a guardian spirit who rules the thresholds between the valley and the moor, between the stone and the sky, and between the world of people and the world of storms. Travellers would leave small offerings here, maybe just a pebble from another land or a sprig of bright heather, just something asking for safe passage across this high ground. Some still do, but they may not know why. But here the ridge begins to feel less natural and more like a long ancient border, a frontier between the world below and something wilder above. The Stone Choir had no king. The Moor King ruled in the Second Age, and the Neb Wardens serve this king. Not a physical form, rather a presence. Something between spirit and form, shaped from the breath of the moor, the memories of the giants, the vigilance of the Wardens, and the storms that visit the crown that is High Neb. The Moor King is the voice of the Second Age. This king rules thresholds, not people. listens to the eternal singing of the stone choir, and guides the Warden's endless patrols. The interpreter of the Moor, one who understands both the silence of the giants and the restlessness of the wind. The Moor King's reign spans the entire Second Age, from the moment the giants rooted themselves to this ridge, to the moment the people began to travel this path. From when the first pack-horse train began to clatter along the long causeway, the first boundary stones were set and the first maps were drawn. This was when the Moor King's age began to fade, and these lands entered the Third Age, the Age of People. But the King's presence lingers. On stormy days, walkers say they feel watched. On still days, they say they feel welcome. Some say that here at the summit, the air changes, the wind sharpens its blade, the horizon widens, and there's a sense that a quiet authority still carries here. Maybe it's because the world opens up here at the highest point of Stanage. But this is the throne of the Ridge, and this summit is the Moor King's Great Hall. Standing here now, it's easy to feel why the stories grew. This place has presence. It has weight. It feels like the land itself is looking back at you. And as I leave, I can feel the Moor King slowly releasing me from his grip. The towers of his hall soften and the battlements fall away. As once here, this landscape is a reminder that High Neb will stay with you forever. And like old stories, it will continue to breathe. Thank you for joining us on this journey. I do hope to see you all again soon.